Hey everybody, welcome to comics class. Brandon Palace here to teach you everything I know about the art of drawing comics. And today we're going to be tackling foreshortening. I've had a lot of requests about how to handle foreshortening. Foreshortening, of course, is the effect of anything really, but typically when we talk about foreshortening, we're talking about the human body, um, the effect of perspective, and the way when something comes towards you, it seems to get bigger, but also the stuff behind is kind of obscured, things like that. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. First, we're going to go ahead, like we always do, and do some warm-ups. So even though this is not super relevant to what we're doing today, we'll just start with a little bit of C-curves. I feel like this is always valuable to do. It's just good training for your hand, good training for drawing in general. So I'm just going to do a bunch of these C-curves. Could do long ones, could do smaller, tight ones, go different directions, go up, go sideways. We'll keep this short. All right, boom, that's it for C-curves. Do some S-curves, same deal. Just do a bunch of these, vary them up, make some tighter. Those are like a real letter S, backward S. Do some long, sort of graceful ones. Almost everything is made up of C-curves and S-curves. If not one of those two, then it's a straight line. Like you can break almost any shape down into these three types of lines: C-curve, S-curve, and straight line. It seems more complicated. It's probably just a combination of those lines. So, all right, that'll do. We don't need to do a lot of that because we got some other stuff to tackle today. I'm going to talk a little bit about overlap. So I'm just going to start. Let's say I drew a ball, right? And let's say this ball is on a surface. And then over here, there's another ball. And if we're looking at those from the side, we see these two balls side by side. But if we say we're like right here looking down, if we swing around to over here, so we're looking at them from an angle, now it's going to look something like this. We're going to get one ball there, and we're going to have another one obscured behind it, and we're going to start to see some perspective. So that's kind of the essence of foreshortening, honestly. Like, this is an important concept. So what I want to do right now is I'm just going to do these circles, roughly circles, and I'm going to create like a snake almost, made out of these little circle segments. And we can see like each of these ones in the front is overlapping the one behind it. We can start to come back so that now these are coming forward. We can just kind of move around like that. So this is going to be a valuable skill for approaching our foreshortening. So let's just do a bunch of these. Maybe we can try with some squares or square-ish sort of shapes. And these are stretching out. That I don't know why, but why not? We can, if we're coming forward, it's a little more difficult if we're trying to do it without any underdrawing, because we have to estimate the edges. Of course, we could just do, this sort of thing, just do a sketch and then go in and do more detailed lines or more, final lines over it. We could erase that, or we could keep that on a different layer or whatever. But just basic overlap. If it's in front, it overlaps what's behind it. It's super obvious, super simple. But here I'm just kind of, I don't know, just piling stuff up behind. A few more of these little circle snakes. And just, you can just do this. Just get a feel. You can have it, you know, kind of coming way out where it's almost going horizontal, and then it kind of tightens up and starts to go almost straight back, all of that kind of thing. So, you know, now you can see how this kind of, it curves back like that. It goes down. Now it comes very sideways, and now it goes very tight back, and now it comes back again. Basic stuff, simple stuff. So you can just practice that, practice your overlap. Watch out for tangents. We want to avoid situations where things are right up against each other, because that kind of destroys the illusion of depth. We want to make sure that we either see that it's clearly behind or clearly in front. But I'll talk more about that kind of stuff later, especially when we get into design principles. So one more little warm up. I've had you guys in the past doing these cubes, and I still recommend that you do these cubes. Just freehand a cube. Try to get the perspective in it. But now what I want to do is I want to work with cylinders. And we're going to kind of do the same thing. But like I said, so much of our dealing with foreshortening is dealing with the body and its foreshortening in space. And so much of the body kind of breaks down to cylinders, the limbs and whatnot. So I'm just going to do a bunch of cylinders. That one's pretty vertical. That's not really foreshortened much. But, you know, it's all a matter of perspective, like literally, and it's a matter of degree. So if we're looking at a cylinder from directly at the side and we don't have any perspective on it, it kind of just looks like a rectangle. But as soon as we get a little perspective, we start to see the top, we start to see the bottom curving. And then if we get more, it gets more tilted, and we start to see this these lines converge. This ellipse starts to widen out from being very tight to being wider, to where, you know, if we were to look straight down at the top of this cylinder, we would just see a circle. If we were to look at a slight angle, we would see like a wide ellipse, and this edge here, this length of the cylinder would start to get very short. So that in essence is what foreshortening is about. So if we get good at drawing these cylinders going different directions, I know these are a little sloppy. They're not, you know, super straight lines and stuff, but that's fine. Like we're not doing finished final art here. We're just trying to get the concept. And you can start to play with a little bit of a variation. Like here, I'm like pinching it in the middle a little bit, or like here, I'm letting it flare out like a cigar or something. And it's good to mess around with that kind of stuff too, because you know, when we're drawing the limbs, we're drawing the arms or legs or whatever, we're going to have all sorts of different shapes and like lumps and whatnot. So let's see. I want to talk very briefly. This isn't super relevant to foreshortening, but since we're doing cylinders right now, I just want to talk again about the major axis and the minor axis. So if we have a circle, let's say this is a perfect circle, and then we start to come over to the side and view it at an angle, it's going to narrow out, right? We're going to see it's going to become an ellipse rather than a circle. And an ellipse has two axes. It has what's called the major axis, which goes through the long way, and it has the minor axis, which goes through the short way. And when we do an ellipse in perspective, when we do like a circle or whatever in perspective, and it becomes an ellipse, if I have a vanishing point here, and I have a horizon line, a line through the center of that cylinder is always going to go straight through the minor axis there, straight through. It's not going to go at an angle at all. It's going to go straight through. So if I have this line here that represents the middle of my cylinder, then the minor axis is going to be like this. It's going to go straight through the minor axis, And then I can, this would probably be a little wider based on the angle. But you can see that line going straight through the minor axis, and then these lines would converge back toward the vanishing point. So just make sure you get your minor axis right on these cylinders. If you don't, like let's say I have a cylinder here, and this is the middle line. And instead of going straight through the minor axis, if like the minor axis is on an angle, it's going to look weird. Like it's going to look like the end of that cylinder is actually at an angle, which is fine. Like if that's what you're going for, sometimes you might, if you're drawing, I always think of like a hypodermic needle or like a Capri Sun straw with that angled sort of cut at the end. So you have to know then that the minor axis is going to be at an angle. But the point is to do that intentionally rather than accidentally and making what's supposed to be a regular cylinder look weird. Okay, so that's a little cylinder review, and that's going to help us with foreshortening. I'm actually going to do one more little thing here. What I'm going to do is, similar to these little ball snakes that we were doing, I'm going to do a little cylinder snake where we're going to draw a cylinder going back, and then we're going to have another one, and we're going to start to build like a snake built out of these cylinders. And this would be a really good exercise to just spend a little bit of time doing. It's going to help your foreshortening drawing a lot. All right, so that's probably plenty for our warm-ups and just a little bit of preparatory material. So let's jump into the foreshortening for the figure. Most importantly, foreshortening is about perspective. So if you don't have a solid understanding of perspective, I recommend that you go back and watch the perspective videos that I did recently, or any other resource you have for learning perspective, whether you got videos or books or whatever. But make sure that you have a solid understanding of perspective, because that's really all this is. It's taking the understanding of the human body that we have and applying our understanding of perspective to it. So I'm going to start out with, I'm just going to create kind of a ground plane here. Like this is, let's see. Yeah, like this is a plane that a figure will be standing on. And I'm going to just kind of estimate, you know what, that's a bad one. Okay, let's see. I'm going to estimate just kind of roughly freehand a perspective box here. Okay. We could, let's see. This is like a 3-point perspective. These lines would all be converging somewhere down here. But I'm just going to roughly estimate a box, okay? So here's a box in perspective. If we looked at it straight from the side, it would be maybe about like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a figure in here, okay? Just going to do this basic mannequin, like I've shown you guys many times. And let's see. I'll actually put the head like right there. So we can be simple. Like this hip line is right in the middle of the figure, and so it's going to be right in the middle of our box here. Okay. So now what we're going to do is using this, and I'll do this on a new layer so we don't kind of crowd it up too much. Using the X technique that I showed you guys in the perspective lessons, we're going to find where the middle of that box is in perspective. Go ahead and fill in the rest of these lines. But it's a little sloppy, but I think you should probably get the idea. So we see that the center of the box is, I'll get rid of that now. because it's a little too visually distracting. But we can see that the center of the box is here, right? So if I measure this out, this is actually a much longer space. It's hard to grab this ruler than this because of perspective. You know, things are getting smaller and compressed as they go toward the vanishing point. So that's, but that's going to be the, make a new layer here. That's going to be where the hip line is. And we know that the head is going to be up here. Let's see, the shoulders somewhere in here. I'm kind of estimating. Maybe I should have done a different kind of box here. But okay, you can kind of see. So we're looking down at the figure. The head is going to be big because it's close. We got the shoulders. We got the hips and all that built. We want the elbows to fall right at the natural waist there. We want the wrists to fall at the hip line there. That head is probably too big. But as you can see, like, this is the basic idea of foreshortening. Let me do another one because I feel like that one's a little sloppy. So let's see. Now I'm going to do a bird's eye view. So let's say we've got, this is our ground plane, and we've got a vanishing point up here. I'll make it kind of exaggerated. And here's our box. I'll find that halfway point using the X technique again, as usual. So there's our halfway point right there. Let's see. I'll just sketch that in right there. Let's see. And we'll just have these kind of two layers, right? I'll change the color on this so it doesn't confuse us too much. And then I'll start to build my figure in there. I will also do some X's in here so we can kind of see a plane there in order to build our figure. So we'll put a little bit of an S curve for the overall sort of swing of the figure and the spine. See, it's getting smaller as we go up. The head is up there, kind of touching right up against that plane. Everything getting smaller as it goes up, getting bigger as it comes down. So we've got these legs. If I measure with my fingers here, I could do it. Whoops, the heck happened there? Okay. I can measure with this ruler. Whoops, that's the curved ruler. Okay, I can measure with this ruler, and we see the legs are actually taking up like probably more than twice as much space as the on the page. More space on the page, not perspective wise. Taking up like twice as much space as the upper body there. Whereas, if we're looking straight at it, the legs are about half of the length of the figure. So let me just finish putting some feet in here. And then we've got these hands, or these, arms coming down. Remember, the elbows are going to land at the waist. The wrist is going to land about at the hips. So there you go. There's an extreme kind of exaggerated foreshortening of this figure. And we just build this simple box in order to kind of situate that figure. Now, the truth is, when I'm drawing a figure in perspective, I am very seldom going to actually build out a box like this. I might do a sort of a simple plane that goes to a vanishing point, and you could finish. You could do the X technique there if you want to find the midpoint. This is the sort of thing that when you've been doing it for a long time, you just develop a sense for it, and you don't really need to calculate all this stuff. But certainly, when you're newer at it, it's valuable to do. So let's see. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and knock out one more little figure here. This looks, yeah, this one might be a little too exaggerated. Remember to let the limbs grow in like thickness as they come forward too, so it doesn't just look like they got exceptionally long. Well, that one's not so great. But anyway, you should get the idea. We're just applying perspective, our normal perspective understanding to the figure. So let me do some new stuff. Because it's one thing to just kind of put together some basic cylinders and have them, being some basic like cylinders and blocks, and have that be kind of in perspective. But when we're dealing with the human body, we've got all these complicated muscles and stuff that are more complicated than just basic cylinders. So I'm going to show, this is pretty simple, but once we start putting in all the little like muscle details and, kneecaps and tendons and all of that stuff, it gets difficult. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw out an arm just from like a standard like side perspective. So let's see. Some biceps, some triceps back there. We got the extensors of the forearm. We got the flexors. The wrist is going to be right there. We're going to get the thumb, the hand, the palm, and fingers. All right. So that's probably good enough for our purposes right now. And we're going to use this as like a guide. So let's like break down what we've got here. Maybe I'll make this hand a little more simple. I don't know. It's fine. So we've got the hand with all the fingers. We've got the palm and the thumb block kind of flaring out. We've got the wrist, which is thin. We've got the lower portion of the forearm, which is kind of like a close to a blocky sort of structure that as it goes toward the elbow, these flexor and extensor muscles flare out, and it kind of becomes like a bulbous cylindrical sort of shape. And then at the elbow, it gets kind of narrow again. And then the biceps flares out right there. The triceps behind it. And then we have the big bulb of the like shoulder muscles. So here's kind of where our stuff is changing. We've got the flare of the hand. We've got the narrow point of the wrist. We've got the forearm kind of flaring out here as we go back to a big, like, to a peak around, a quarter of the way down from the elbow. And then we've got a narrow part at the elbow again. And then we've got a wider part at the biceps, and then the triceps up here. And then we've got the big part of the deltoid. So if I were to do an exaggerated like foreshortened perspective of this arm, let's see. Let's go ahead and put this in a box. So we can kind of see where everything ends up. Let's see. Do this X. The did I make this too long? I think I may have made this forearm a bit too long here. The midpoint should be closer to the elbow. But okay, so we got that. We got that midpoint. Well, no. I confused myself. Sorry about that, guys. I was including the hand in the calculation there, which really it shouldn't be. So let's see. Yeah, that's actually about right. So kind of these are our segments. This is our box. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a box, and I'm going to cast it way back into perspective. Okay. And then let's see. We see that the halfway point, as I originally put it, is about at the fat point of the forearms. So I'm going to find that point. We know that, let's see. And we can kind of just use that to like estimate where everything else is. I'm not going to like calculate where everything is here, because you can do that if you want to be super, super accurate, but it's usually not necessary. It might be good to practice a little bit, but a lot of this is just going to go by feel. Just by developing a strong understanding of perspective, a strong intuitive sense of perspective, which requires a lot of practice, but it's super worth it. And also by understanding the anatomy well. So, okay, so this line here, the center, stands for this line here. So we're going to go a little bit back from there. We know that's where the elbow would be, and then the deltoid's going to be back there. Hand up here. The hand is going to be take up a little less than half of the space forward of that halfway point. We can also use this. This is a little tougher, but we can kind of use how much space these parts take up within this overall block as a guide. So, all right. So we've got the middle point there. I'm going to come, let's see, I'll kind of ghost in another X so I can find the halfway point. And then I know the hand is a little forward of the halfway point. So that's about where the wrist is going to fall. And then we're going to kind of project all of this stuff down a little bit because it's a little bit down. So I would estimate, like if I bring this down, the wrist is about right there. The bulge of the forearm, I guess I should be using a different color here now, huh? All right, I'm going to do this. The bulge of the forearm would be about right there. Actually, no, that goes at the halfway point. Okay, there. Remember to keep all of this very like nice and cylindrical. Not really cylindrical, obviously it's like lumpy and all sorts of different ways because of the anatomy, but the overall impression should be cylindrical. Can't talk right now. The bicep is going to kind of be back there. The triceps there, and then this one is this line there, right? So we're going to have the whole deltoid right there. Now let's see. Within this forwardmost sort of segment, like that, the end of the fingers, or the knuckles, the end of the palm where the fingers start, is about halfway. So like that line would be right there. Drop that down. have that that thumb block coming off. We can estimate that the fingers are about right there. And they're going to come forward and poke right up against the end of this block. And I'll just kind of rough in these fingers. We don't need to do a really detailed drawing here. And that right there is clean that up a little bit, a not too badly foreshortened arm, I feel. So let's see. How much more of this do I want to do? I think maybe, yeah, I'll do one more. I'll do a, let's see. I'll do the leg this time. So here, let's see, I'll put the hip, knee. All right. So this is the greater trochanter of the thigh, the bony landmark at the outside of the bottom of the hip where the thigh attaches. We'll just build some mass on there so we can start to see the anatomy. We got the calf muscles. We got the foot right there. And I'll cast this whole thing into a, let's see. Oops. We got the groin kind of right there. Okay, so we can find our halfway point, which is going to be about at the knee. We can find halfway points above and below as well. Okay, so here's what we see. We've got all these muscles here. We see that there's the outside of the thigh bulges out, and it peaks right about at that halfway line. We also have the inside line muscle of the thigh kind of intersecting with the what do you call them? The adductors. Yes, the adductors that pull the leg kind of closed right here. So we've got this divot sort of that's slightly below that halfway point, and then it flares out again. We've got the knee kind of crossing right over that middle point, and then we've got the lower leg tapering down toward the ankle before it flares out at the foot again. We've got this inner portion of the calf muscle that kind of ends right at that halfway point, or around it. Again, these drawings are a little bit sloppy, not super accurate, but close enough. And then we've got the outside bulge of that calf muscle that's about halfway down to that halfway line. So that gives us some good indicators. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to build this same block in perspective. So we'll do this like we're looking down the leg, which makes sense because a lot of times we're going to be seeing the legs from above because our eyes are up above the legs. So I will find that halfway point. And this is pretty extreme perspective here, so the halfway point is way down. Let's see. Is that accurate? It's close enough. I'm going to commit to it. And then from here, okay, so let's review real quick. We've got the leg flaring out on the outside. We've got that dip in the inside where the muscles kind of meet and cross over each other. We've got the knee at the halfway point. We've got the lower leg, the calf muscles kind of flaring out, lower on the inside, higher on the outside, to the ankle, which is a little more than halfway down from that halfway point, and then flaring out to the foot again. So I'm gonna start here. Let's see. I'm just gonna kind of BS the pelvis area here. And we'll start there. So this leg is going to flare out to the knee, which is going to go at the halfway point. So this is a pretty extreme perspective already. As you can see, it's being very, very heavily compressed as we get toward the bottom. And then this inner bulge, the vastus medialis, is going to come in here and loop back up toward the hip bone there. We've got the adductor, which, you know what? I said, we've got this halfway point. I didn't measure these out on this this box, so I'm going to do that now. All right, there's the halfway point, halfway of the halfway, where this muscle kind of crosses over in front of the adductor. You also get the sartorius muscle running up this way, but we don't usually see it. It does create a nice border though. Okay, so there's all those muscles in place. We've got the knee right there. And then, okay, so I showed you guys halfway down, we come to kind of the bottom of the bulge of the calf muscles, the gastrocnemius. The outside is higher up than the inside. So let me go ahead and calculate that center again. And once you get good at this, you don't need to be drawing these X's all the time. You can just estimate it. In my opinion, it's good to know all the details. It's good to know how to calculate and measure and all that stuff. But nothing beats just doing it so much that your eye knows what's right and wrong. And then you can just kind of estimate based on, your visual interpretation. Which is why it's important to practice a lot. And then your eye just develops. But I digress. Okay, so let that calf kind of come down. Let's see. We're dealing with the thing kind of behind this front line where I made the line. So that we're going to project back to find the bottom of that calf muscle. And then the foot is down at the bottom, and that'll kind of come out of the box. So that's actually pretty good. That's I think that's a pretty solid foreshortened leg. And then obviously, if we were to do the rest of the figure up here, up top in this perspective, it would get gigantic. The head would be like, I don't know. But anyway, so there's another example of how you can kind of figure this all out with a box. From here, I think what I will do is I'll just doodle a few figures and just kind of try to have some natural foreshortening in place. So let me just do a ground plane. A lot of times I like to just do a simple X to like imply a ground plane. And now I'll have a figure. This will be the torso. They'll just be kind of sitting here. Let's see. Maybe this leg is coming out, and then they're kind of just sitting like halfway cross-legged. So this leg is going to go out to the side, but then the lower leg is going to be very foreshortened. So we're going to, we're going to see that cylindrical sort of quality to it, and just rough in a foot there. And then let's see, we'll have this other one. The thigh is going to be very foreshortened. It's going to be coming very much right toward us. And then the lower leg as well. And this is a good example of how, much like we did those overlap exercises in the beginning, when you're dealing with foreshortening, a lot of times the stuff's going to get hidden behind other stuff. So like right here, we've actually lost most of this thigh behind this lower leg. Let's see. That might be a bit too big. All right. And then, I'll have this arm going back a little bit, and we're again, make sure we have that kind of cylindrical quality to it. You can put a hand, make sure that hand kind of rests on that ground plane. We've got the neck kind of coming forward a little bit, put a head on there. And then let's say this guy's doing, with this other hand, he's doing like a finger gun. So this upper arm, let's see, the upper arm maybe it can kind of come straight down, not too foreshortened, but the forearm. And if you hear my cat meowing outside the door, I apologize. She's just hungry. Not time to eat yet. So this forearm, we're gonna get, wrap those rubber bands around it to indicate that it's cylindrical. We don't need to do that. That's for our own purposes. That doesn't need to show up in the final drawing, but it can help to show form, and to just kind of help our brain comprehend it, so that as we continue the drawing, we make sure we're doing things right. So a little bit of foreshortening even on that finger, although that's getting kind of too small to see much detail. And yeah, okay. There's a figure with some foreshortening in place. Let me see. What else? What else we got? I'll do a figure standing. Do another. Okay, so notice this X that I did here. This is kind of a wide X, which suggests that it's a plane that's like, whoops, let me show you. Suggests that it's a plane that's kind of like, more like flat. That doesn't help. But that we're not looking too steeply down at it. Whereas if I do much more of if I did like a straight, like a plus almost, that means we're looking almost straight down. So the more you let these cross each other at like a wide angle, the more it's going to imply closer to a side view. Whereas the more they become right angles, the more it's going to imply looking straight down. So let me just do another one real quick. There we go. And then I'm gonna, let's see. Here, I'll just kind of ghost in a plane that flares out at the top, and that kind of gets tight at the bottom, that goes down toward a kind of imaginary vanishing point. And I'm giving it this swing because that's what the figure is going to be doing. The figure is going to have this this exaggerated sort of motion. So let's have those. Let's have the hips getting smaller there, the legs getting way smaller. And then let's see. Let's do this arm. He'll have the arms up high, like he's reaching to the sky. That's kind of too much. And then this arm is easier because it's less foreshortened than this one is going to be. This one's going to be coming very much almost straight toward us. So what I'm going to do, this is another handy tip, is I'm going to build this arm out first. A little sloppy there. All right. And then I'm going to kind of project these landmarks across so that I can build my other arm. So there's the armpit, kind of. That'll be right there, projected across. There's the shoulder. That's right there. And then right here, we can see there's like some distance between the shoulder and the elbow. But when we project this across in front of this shoulder, it's going to land like right there. There's going to be almost no distance. So this is totally foreshortened there. And then this wrist is going to come across to right there. And then the hand. All right, so a little sloppy. We would probably need to do some work in here to kind of connect all this stuff up anatomically correctly. But I feel like that's actually a pretty solid perspective figure right there. Foreshortened figure. Yeah, this anatomy would be a little bit tough, but you know, that's the job. And let's see. I'll do one more. I'll do a person kind of. Let's see. This one I'm going to want to create more of a specific like plane. And then I'll have a person crawling kind of forward on this plane. So I'm going to start just with some stick figures. Stick figure basic stuff. Ghost in that torso, the chest, ghost in the hips. Leg. Going to be a lot of foreshortening on the forearm, a lot of foreshortening on the lower leg because they're the ones that's really like the axis that we're looking down, whereas the upper arm and upper leg are a lot more like perpendicular to the camera or parallel to the camera, I guess. So there's the head. I'll just rough this stuff in. This calf muscle is going to become almost like a sphere when we look at it from this angle. Let the foot go back over there. Hand coming forward. Depending on how close it gets, stuff might actually get like really big. This is something to do with like focal length and stuff. With focal length, I think, is a photography term. I guess maybe it's involved in regular vision anyway, but focal length means, you know, essentially how much the lens is going to compress or exaggerate the distance from near to far. So when you're looking at something really far away or with a really long lens, it tends to minimize the difference between near and far. So if someone is standing far away from you and they hold their hand out towards you, you're not going to see a lot of difference. But if they're standing right in front of you and they hold their hand out so that it's right in front of your face, their hand is going to look huge compared to the rest of them. So like, I know I'm sidetracking, but let me just do a little quick example here. So like if we have a person, they're standing here and they're 100 feet away from us. And they hold up their hand, then it might just look like this, or maybe even like smaller than that, because of the perspective and that focal length. It's not like exaggerated. It kind of compresses that length. But if the person is very close to us and they hold their hand up right up in our face, it's going to look huge. And it's going to block out like the whole arm behind it. Probably we might see a little bit of like the forearm popping out behind it. So that's something to be aware of. Comics artists, superhero comic artists anyway, often like to use really exaggerated foreshortening like this. But in any case, okay, so let's go back to this. Let me see. Let this arm come back a little bit. I don't know if this is the best pose, but I think, you know, we're getting examples. It's always good to see more examples. This leg is going to come forward. We got those rubber bands to indicate the direction, the perspective kind of direction of that. And then again, this lower leg, we got that bulbous calf, leg going behind. Here, make the hand fit on that ground plane. And yeah, that's pretty all right. Okay, so that is foreshortening. I may revisit this in the future. If you guys want to see more about this, let me know. I'm always happy to, talk about whatever it is you guys want to see. I'm here for you. So yeah, that's the basics of foreshortening. It's important. It's valuable. It's mostly about understanding perspective and then understanding how to cast the anatomy of the figure into that perspective. So good luck, guys. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Share it with your friends, anybody you think you could benefit. And I will catch you next time. Catch you next time. Bye.